Hello, 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 y'all. Welcome. Welcome. Oh, it's autoplaying. I wasn't fast enough to switch playlists. Hello, 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 y'all. Oh my goodness, there's an echo as well. Where's that coming from? Okay. Okay, theoretically, that's all fixed. Hello. Welcome. A little bit of a chaotic start, but we're here. It's Global Hack Week AIML. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Oh my god, it wasn't an echo. I forgot that we made a channel point redemption, my own voice. So when I said hello, 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 y'all, and then I heard that back, I thought that there was an echo. Nope. Echo gone, hype up. It wasn't an echo, it was Shem. Thank you, Shem. I also realized that we spent all of last month creating this wonderful tool for me to turn channel points on and off. And I forgot to use it when I stopped streaming at the end of last month, so it has been on this entire time. So thankfully, I will hopefully remember to use it this time. But for those of you who are new to my streams, hello, I'm Dimmer. I use they, them pronouns, and I've been a coach with Major League Hacking for 2.5 years now. I'm almost up to my 3-year anniversary. I'm excited to be here with y'all to talk about AI in computer science versus AI in game development, because they're two very different uses of the same term. It's going to be a really exciting week. For those of you who haven't been to one of my streams before, things are a little different, as you might be able to tell. We have chat on. Oh, let me turn on TTS. If you use the ! TTS command in chat before your message, it'll be read out loud by a text-to-speech bot that we built in a previous week. We have channel point rewards that were on technically for previous streams, but this is the stream that they work on. They make sounds like you heard before with hello, y'all, and we also have things like dramatic tension. This is also a thing that we set up last week. So we do a lot of cool projects on this stream. I'm excited for y'all to be here, to be able to experience it. Yeah, that's all of the things off the bat. Hello. You can tell that this is my first stream of the month because I'm just like going out firing and then I'm like, wait, how do I do this? What's happening? So yeah, I'm going to give people a little bit. We have a little bit of a quiet chat today, which is fine, but I see that we have 51 people in here, which is amazing. I always love when we have big streams at the beginning of the month. And we have someone watching on YouTube. Hello, person in YouTube. Sadly, all of the interactivity happens on Twitch, but again, we do stream live to Twitch and YouTube at the same time so that you can always see the recordings on YouTube under the live tab of the MLH YouTube channel. That is one of the reasons why I've started adding with Dimmer at the end of all of my stream titles, so that you can search Dimmer on the MLH channel in the live recordings to see all of the streams that I've done, because sometimes it can be a little hard to sort through them because they don't have super unique thumbnails. It's only 10K now. Yeah, also what happened last month is that all of the channel point reward costs went down because I realized that the point of these were for people to be able to use them. So it might be a mistake. But for 10K channel points, hey Green Yoshi, welcome. For 10K channel points, you can completely interrupt me, and a extremely low bitrate version of Rick Astley Never Gonna Give You Up is gonna cover the stream. It's one of the things that we've added. One thing that I did realize is, again, last month, we created a script to automatically turn on and off channel point rewards, but we added the dramatic tension channel point reward after creating the script, so that one is not controlled by the script. So that is a thing that I will hopefully fix sometime this week if we have extra time at the end of one of our streams, which this one we might have extra time during, because this one we're kind of laying the groundwork, talking about a bunch of different things, and then sound effects working. Today we're laying the groundwork for what we're going to be doing in the next 2 streams, which are going to be implementing a pathfinding AI, I put that in quotes because, again, game dev, in Godot Game Engine, part 1 and part 2. So I'm doing 3 streams this week. And for those of you who have been to my Global Hack Week streams before, you might know that that is a fairly low number of streams for me. I usually like to hit between the 5 and 7 stream number. That is both what, I feel allows me to interact more with the community, and also what I can do. Oh, okay, that was just the song fading out. I was scared for a sec that a Rickroll was about to start. The one thing about Rickroll, I'm cutting myself off here, but is that it can only be redeemed once per stream. So I felt comfortable decreasing the number of channel points because it couldn't be spammed. So yeah, we're starting today with talking about AI in game development, and then we're implementing a pathfinding AI on an enemy character in the second 2 streams. And I'm doing fewer streams this month because I am moving on the 12th. So yeah, in basically 2 days now, I'm entirely moving. So this is going to be one of the, no, this is the last, no, tomorrow. Tomorrow I stream. Tomorrow will be the last stream from this space, which I will miss because I've worked really hard in the stream background. I really like it. I have thought about making sure that I get some captures of it, like with the camera set up with this focus so that I could green screen it later. That's a thing that I've thought about. Congrats and condolences moving is a thing. Yeah, I'm excited for moving, but the circumstances around it weren't great. So there's like a lot of stress. But it is moving forward in my life, which I'm excited for. So that's kind of the housekeeping going into this. I had a question here. I've made a new Discord account with the email I registered on MLH and now just, oh, okay, that's a response. I was looking through chat before I started about some problems that people were having registering for the Discord. I'm glad that is working for you now. So yeah, that is where we are at right now. So I think it is time to get into talking about AI in computer science versus AI in game dev. I'm actually going to really quickly adjust the sound balance because it seems like the music is a little loud. Not really. Okay, it's about where it is usually. I can do that, and that might make it... Okay, that seems good. So, AI in computer science versus AI in game dev. A lot of, if not all of, when I was looking through the streams before, of these are going to be talking about AI in computer science. Yep, we have natural language processing, we have machine learning, we have LLMs, we have image classifiers, we have...
Hello, Dimmer.
Python machine learning.
What are you doing today? And by the way, I specially woke up at 3:30 a.m. for your stream.
Oh my goodness. Well, hi Ashwin. It's nice to see you. It's always nice when you stop by, and thanks for getting up specifically for my stream. I'm sorry that it is at 3:30 a.m. for you, but it's always nice seeing you. If you need to dip out early to get some sleep, I will entirely understand. I don't think we've seen 404 yet, but the stream is still young. But yeah, so most of, if not all of the streams that are happening this week are traditional AI ML topics. It is like what you, when most people think of AI, this is what they think of. Image classifiers are the thing that comes to my head, of being able to look at an image and the computer spits out what's inside of it. 404 is traveling, they said. Okay, well, best of luck to 404 in their traveling. I will miss them. As probably will we all. Oh, I had a train of thought. I swear, I've been doing this for years now. I'm good at it. Oh, yes. When I think of AI and ML.
404 not found.
When I think of machine learning projects, those are what I think of.
The saddest thing I could hear was go back to sleep. Sad face.
Sorry, I never want to tell you to like, get out of here, because I really like you being here, and it's always nice when you show up. And also, I always feel bad whenever people are like, it's like 3 a.m. and I'm here for your stream, and I'm like, take care of yourself. Like, I don't want you to like be exhausted or get sick or like burned out and like struggling in school. Like, my stream is not worth that. I appreciate you being here, but Tangent Alert isn't there, sad face. Oh yeah, I never finished the editing for Tangent Alert. Ugh, I said that I was going to do that, and I did not. I am sorry, Shem. But yeah, that's why I said you can go to bed. I'm not going to force you to, but I never want people to force themselves. So yeah, there are traditional AI projects. And then also, when you are playing a game that you really like, you might think about like, oh, the AI in this game is so good, where the original Halo is a great example. I wish I could stay and watch this live, but other things take priority. Maybe your next one live. Yep, I totally understand. Again, there are always recordings on the YouTube. Best of luck, Thinkverse. So in the original Halo game...
Okay, Dimmer, good night then. Thanks for reminding about healthcare.
Good night. Have a good sleep. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. So when people talk about AI in the first Halo game, what they're specifically talking about is the fact that the enemies in that game made choices. Hello. And those choices often challenged the player in interesting ways, and also they could become predictable. So it was not that it was like a black box AI in the way that we might traditionally think of AI, and it was not that it was way better than the player. It was that it challenged the player in ways that the player would learn throughout the course of the game. And when I think about AI in game development, that is what I think about, where you implement AI in your game to add challenge and variety in a way that gives the player something to learn and something to compete against without, if you push it too far and you think about what a lot of modern AI is, it is basically, for lack of a better word, wizardry of like, we don't know how the computer does this, but we know that it can, and we know that it works really well. And if you apply that to a video game where the player doesn't necessarily know what's happening or why it's happening or how it's happening, well, that can make for an interesting game. I saw a game recently that was a murder mystery where all of the characters were based on an LLM. Hey, thanks for the follow, Jovi Tanjif. I'm just gonna call it Jovi. Thanks for the follow. And they had all of these LLMs, these large language models, as all of the characters. And as you go through this murder mystery game, they had enough data to be able to answer your questions. So you would theoretically be interacting with them using natural language, asking questions, having real conversations, which is a wonderful and super cool idea for a game. And also, the way that it was structured was like a fascinating tech demo, but it didn't make for a super engaging game because there wasn't, at least in my opinion, in my study of game design, a good game is a game in which there is predictability, where the player knows that the actions that they make will have replicable outcomes. If you think about like speedrunning is knowing all of the weird things that you can do in the game that will work fairly consistently. There are a lot of speedrun glitches that are not consistent at all, but the idea generally of a game and getting good at a game is that you can do the same thing and get the same result. And that is where using like these traditional AI projects doesn't necessarily fit in. So the idea in my head of AI and AI in game development is creating interesting systems that work in a way that is not readily apparent to the player. If you think about like Goombas in Mario, they walk back and forth, they hit an edge, they turn around. That is technically, that would fall under my classification of AI in a game, where a non-player character is being controlled, making decisions, doing that sort of thing. But it's not super interesting. It doesn't provide much challenge, but that wasn't the point, so it didn't need to. But a lot of the ways that this is done is using more traditional like data structures and algorithms, which I'm currently taking some data structures and algorithms refreshers because I'm about to go back to school for computer science. So those are on my mind, as fun as they are. And this is like a good example of that, where the pathfinding AI that we are going to be implementing, I call it pathfinding AI because that is traditionally what when you talk about an enemy in a game, you say that it is pathfinding AI, and that it can move around and do things like that. Green Yoshi, thank you. I start in the summer, so it's a while from now, but I just wanted to brush up on things because I have plenty of practice making jank things on stream, but not a whole lot of practice writing like good code in like an academic setting. And one of the big things this pathfinding AI, we are using Godot game engine, which I've talked about before. It's a wonderful open source game engine that is like a competitor to Unity, Unreal Engine, those sort of like big competitors. Open source, wonderful, all that jazz. And it has built-in tooling and scripts for you to add pathfinding to characters and objects and things like that in your game. Specifically, there you go, Ajaxon. It uses A*, which is a like big theoretical algorithm. You might, if you've done some like algorithms classes, you might have covered Dijkstra, you might have covered A*. These are like, I don't want to call them simple necessarily, but they are like classical computer science algorithms and examples. And we are just now implementing those into the game in a way that merges with our game design to create interesting and interactive experiences. So there's that. And then also one of the big ways that game designers and game programmers create that interesting AI behavior in non-player characters, objects, that sort of thing, is with state machines, where I'm going to butcher the explanation of a state machine. A state machine is a specific type of data structure that has a lot of theory associated with it. It has a lot of theory associated with it. You can basically go down a rabbit hole super deep. There's still like active research, I'm pretty sure. But in essence, it is the idea that I'm going to call it our enemy, can be in many different distinct states, and those states interact with each other. So, I'm going to open a paint application and draw a quick diagram for us, if I can do that. Theoretically, I can. Do I have... Oh no. Do I have any painting applications on my streaming setup? This is where, like, I'm thinking from the perspective of, like, your classic, like, computer science YouTubers. They pull out MS Paint. Oh no. Okay. We're gonna jank it up, as my streams often are. I'm just gonna quickly search for a online whiteboard. Great. Now I can share my... Well, that's deeply cursed. This is from the Raspberry Pi stream where I used the capture card that now captures my like nice camera, and I used that to capture a Raspberry Pi. So what I need to do is, I didn't realize that this was broken. Yeah, okay. So you... There. There. And then, where's my webcam? There we go. Great. Now we're back to normal. So, if we have something with a state machine, let's say an enemy, we have our first state, and let's say that this is walking, and it has a specific path that it'll walk along. Lucid chart, yeah, if I were doing something more complicated, sure, but Miro's easy enough. Well, actually, let's do it for a Goomba. And then we have a state where it is turning around. And then we have a state where it is like, for lack of a better word, dying. And these are all connected in this way, where when our Goomba starts walking, when it reaches an edge, it turns around, and then when not, it goes back to walking. And then, at any time when Mario stomps, it can go into its dying state. Sorry for the messy handwriting, but this is the best illustration that I have off the fly here. Theoretically, I should set up a drawing tablet that I have for this. But anyway, this is a very basic state machine, where we can see that the AI here that is controlling the machinery controlling this character in the game is very simple, and it has distinct rules and distinct settings where it can either be walking, turning around, or dying. And there are specific triggers that'll bring it between those states. And this is talking about, again, a state machine in game development. There are many different uses for this technology. It's like again, like a classical data structure. I'm like 99% sure on that. Are different fields for computer science, such as how a CS student can use AI? Yes. Basically, every stream that is happening this week is going to be for traditional computer science students to use AI. For your image, like, again, you can go down the list and every single one of those is going to apply if you are a computer science student or just someone interested in computer science and you want to learn more about AI. This one specifically is talking about game dev because it uses the same term. It uses that term AI, but it uses it in a different way. And especially nowadays when AI is a little bit, a little bit might be an understatement of a buzzword. I think it's important to talk about the ways in which it is used in different industries. And also, since a lot of computer science, like students and developers, are also gamers, I always think it's interesting to talk about game development, because it is both like a fun, interesting thing that uses computer science a little more creatively, and also a lot of people can like have an understanding of how that applies. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is an example for our Goomba, but then we also, let's talk about grunts in Halo 1. Grunts, oh my goodness. Grunts, Halo 1. And let's take a look at grunt in Halo. It is this guy. These are like your basic lowest tier, smallest enemies in Halo. Also an example, playing chess against a computer. That is an interesting and different problem. And I will write that down really quickly to come back to that, because that is a perfect example of AI in computer science and AI in game development, and how those are two different things. Notepad. Everything's slightly out of place because, again, I'm in the middle of packing. Okay. Great. Okay, I have that written down. So these are grunts. They're like the basic enemy in Halo. And we can look at basically a very simplified state machine that I think we're also going to go over later. But we have an idle state where they're just kind of standing around. Then we have like a let's say we have a shooting state where they're shooting at our character, Master Chief. They also have a running state because they can run away. They have a state for taking cover. Actually, I'm going to replace running with panic because I think that is the more accurate. So this is an enemy that has an alert state. That's kind of lumped into shooting. Again, this is a very simplified example, but I'm just trying to illustrate the point of like, this is when I would talk about AI in game design. And when people talk about Halo 1 having great AI, this is what it's referring to, where our grunt can be in its idle state. And then when it sees Master Chief, it moves into the shooting state. And then from the shooting state, if Master Chief throws a grenade or in idle state throws a grenade, it'll run to take cover. And then, hey, thanks for the follow, Tome. I'm gonna Toamai? My knee-jerk reaction is Tome. So that's what I'll go with until corrected. Thanks for the follow. Oh, but then if Master Chief throws a grenade, we can take cover from shooting or idle. And then if enough of its nearby friends have been shot by Master Chief from shooting or idle, it'll go into panic state where it runs away. And we can see that we have started, when it loses track of Master Chief, it goes back to idle, and back to idle. We can see that we now have a tree of behaviors where there won't necessarily be a situation in this simplified example where we go from taking cover to panic or from panic back to shooting. But there might be an example where we go from idle to shooting to panic to idle to taking cover to shooting. And that builds out complex behaviors that are based on a fairly simplistic set of rules and states. And this is really like classic game dev AI. And I think we're going to talk about this because I have a really good video essay from Game Maker's Toolkit that we're going to look at. Thank you for the follow. Ashkul Islam Dev, I believe, is the username. Thank you. So yeah, that is an example of two very simple sort of AIs in game development. Where basically it is any structure that we use to control a this is my personal definition, any like tool or structure that we use to control a non-player character in game development in such a way that is both like engaging for the player and slightly predictable. So it's not a complete black box. This is where I will now respond to what Shem said about AI in chess. And I would consider that like classic computer science AI rather than your game development AI. And the reason why is because when you are playing against a chess bot, the goal of that bot is not to, well, generally, the goal of a chess AI is to play the game of chess as best as possible. And they often have difficulty sliders and things like that when they're built into games, but the like theory behind a chess AI is trying to like beat humans and be the best at this game, where this game existed long before games, long before computers. And then it was a tool, and still is to a certain extent, a tool to test different theories of how computers work, to try playing chess. Same with Go. Like, these sort of games, I don't necessarily think of as being in the same realm, because you're using more traditional AI tooling, because your goal is to make it just as good as possible, to replicate or surpass human achievement, which is, again, our goal in classification algorithms and natural language processing algorithms and, sentiment analysis, and all of these different things. Cowering state when under heavy fire. Yep. Are there AI packages that can be used to help with data visualization, or is that a different session? I believe that was actually the next session. So that's from 7 to 11 Eastern time. No, 7 to 9 Eastern time. Goodness. Is share your data visualizations with TyPy with Steven. I think that I don't remember what TyPy is. But there is going to be data visualization stuff. That is not going to be my stream, but it is happening this week. I may have missed this if mentioned earlier. Is there recommended open source software for state machine design? It depends on your use case. Googling stuff. Generally, it is a part of your other development tooling. So yeah, here we have the Godot docs for how to add. Yeah, scripting a game can be difficult when there are many states that need to be handled, but only one script can be attached to a node at a time. Instead of creating a state machine within the player control script, it would make developer simpler if the states were separated out into different classes. Here are different ways to implement a state machine, where it is in your, in this case, your game engine that you're going to be working on it. That is the extent that I know about it. There might be for more complicated, because I know that this is used in other places, but I know of it from game development. TyPy is a Python framework, not the right word, like Streamlit. Okay, great. Symbolic AI expert systems. I have not heard either of those terms before. Symbolic AI is a subset of AI that focuses on the processing and manipulation of symbols or concepts rather than numerical data. Interesting. Okay. And then expert systems. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Warrened Peaches. In artificial intelligence, an expert system is a computer system emulating the decision-making ability of a human expert. That is like a very good, like, using the proper terminology to describe what I was talking about. Very nice. Godot is very convenient. It is. It's not perfect. There are real arguments to be made that if you want to become a professional game designer, Godot is not the end-all be-all. But for the level that I do this, and the majority of y'all do it, I think it is perfect. And the skills are transferable. So unless you are like about to like try applying to game design or game development like companies and studios, I highly recommend Godot, because wonderful community, open source, all that jazz. Can game developers use Java and AI to build those games? So I don't know, SweDev, what you're referring to with those games, but Java's not traditionally a language associated with game development. Not to say that it can't be used, but C++ is the main one that I know. Any kind of games. Yeah, so C++ is the main, like, if you want to learn a language, Minecraft is written in Java. No, it is correct. And there are people who have many opinions about that. C++ is the language that you can use across Godot, Unity, Unreal. Like basically if you feel comfortable in C++, you can use that across basically every engine. Minecraft is interesting because Minecraft wrote their own engine from scratch. It is that like old of a game, and also it was that like different of a game at the time. There's a lot of like interesting history of Minecraft development there, and a lot of people criticize it for being written in Java because that results in lower performance than many other games. It's kind of a meme of getting Minecraft run in a system, and I believe I'm gonna fact check myself. Yeah, so Bedrock and Windows edition of Minecraft are C++ based. But the original classic Minecraft is Java based. There's a whole lot of debate over like the benefits and disadvantages of different languages for Minecraft, and most people think that the performance issues of Minecraft are just based on like early design decisions. That's like a larger can of worms that we don't have the time to like get fully into. C++ is a high performance language, right? And Java is in the middle. That's like the general advice. I would argue that languages are as fast as like the developer can make them. Now I say that you can't make Python as fast as you can make like assembly code for like obvious reasons, that there are like different layers that it needs to trickle through that add more overhead. But I wouldn't necessarily say that Java is like an inefficient language. C++ is traditionally considered a higher like efficiency language because it doesn't have like garbage collection and things like that. Like it puts a lot more on the developer. That's like a high level overview, but I would argue, especially again at the level at which like the average MLH person is at and the level that I am at, the language that you feel most comfortable with is the language that you should be using. That I don't think there's like an advantage to be made. Like I still do a ton in Python, even though Python is like an incredibly slow language compared to many others, because it is just what I feel comfortable working in, and it's what I know the tooling for, and it is my time creating it that is more important than the runtime for the things that I am doing at my level. But this is where I have a friend from when I was back in school, who was recreating Minecraft server architecture in Rust for the increased performance and stability that would afford. I didn't understand it at the time. I thought it was incredibly stupid because I was like, the server architecture, it exists, write something new. But I understand now why that is A, beneficial, and B, an interesting computer science project. My like idea of what interesting projects has greatly expanded from when I was 18. I typed into Gemini, Minecraft is written in Java and as I don't know how I would pronounce that in French, and it answered me completely in French. I mean, yeah. I don't know how much I want to get into this, but I'll mention it briefly. This is AIML week, and I'm deliberately not talking about LLMs. I've done a lot of streams talking about them in the past. And again, these are my individual opinions. It's one of the nice things about the way that MLH like has us streamers do things, so that we speak of our own opinions, not MLH's, not sponsors, usually just our own, unless it's like an explicitly sponsored stream. And generally, I think that LLMs can be bad for students and bad for learning, but are like an interesting tool for use in the real world. That's still kind of out there. There have been some studies recently about code quality going down when companies implement like coding with basically paired programming with an AI. It's still a debate. But yeah, typing something into Gemini and getting that response, I get that. A tool that I have been using actually is, this is on occasion, I've been messing around with it. You'll notice that this is Firefox, but when I'm not streaming, my main browser is Arc browser, which is a highly opinionated browser in the way that it is designed, but that opinionated design works for the way my brain works, with different like scenes and profiles all in the same way. Anyway, a lot of people like it. Some people hate it. It's currently macOS stable and Windows beta. But they recently just partnered with Perplexity AI to be the default search engine. And Perplexity AI is an LLM, but I like this, and I believe that the Brave search engine does something similar, where if I search, how does Minecraft being written in Java impact performance? And we search this, it does its traditional LLM thing. It gives me a summary. And then it also theoretically cites its sources. So we can see 4 is over here, number 4, and it's sourcing these. I can see that, oh, it got this information from a bunch of forums. So this is like some people talking about this. And I find this an interesting tool that I use on occasion. Still up in the air. This is me kind of going on a tangent alert button if I had made it, about LLMs in the ways that I think that they are interesting technology, and also they are incredibly computationally expensive. They are like incredibly like on like a global scale, like slow and inefficient, and they have a tendency still to hallucinate that hasn't been fixed. And when I have tried using ChatGPT to write code for me, it took longer than writing it myself. That is my long rant at just the mention of Gemini. But yeah, so that is an overview from my perspective of the difference between AI in computer science versus AI in game dev. War and Peach is massively connected, incompressible. I agree with you. Yeah, there's an argument to be made that there are interesting applications of it, but I am viewing it very similar to crypto, where the blockchain technology itself has some interesting applications in certain circumstances, but it is not a magic like golden ticket that can automatically fix things. And I am nervous for a future where I have already noticed, and I'm sure you have as well, a lot more internet content that just reads as off, and AI generated images and AI generated text. I've heard some like stories from both sides of recruiting. If you type !TTS as your first thing and then something afterwards, so in this case,
hello,
that's how you use the TTS command. From people in different like recruiting circles, in computer science and in other industries, where there are recruiters who are saying, dang, like so many of my applications were written by AI, and I can like, there's just like the general tone has just like changed, and I've noticed a difference since these tools have become massive. And there have also been responses from people, especially people who speak English as a second language, saying they've gotten responses from recruiters, from companies, from internships, that say, hey, you wrote an application using AI. And they went, no, I didn't. What? And the tools that detect AI generated content are highly, highly just like biased against people who don't speak English as a first language. It's a really complicated issue. I have a lot of hesitancy around it. I think it is an interesting thing to mess around with, but when I'm like, again, I'm like doing algorithms, data structures stuff, partly out of like, that is what you do to like prep for job interviews and things like that. And also it is like, those are the classes that I'm going to be taking when I go back to school. So I want to like have a little bit less of a stressful time going back after taking a year and a half, 2 years off. And I like turned off code complete in my IDE because I wanted to like get back used to Python syntax when I was doing all of these things and like type it out manually, because that was like a useful learning tool. And I think that the like processes of doing things yourself can both be tedious, and removing that is good, and also can be a good tool for learning. And I don't know that balance for myself, so I definitely can't say what that balance would be for other people, but that is what I think about when people talk about AI, especially AI in the classroom, where I generally like on a principled believe that like more human interaction, one-on-one contact in a classroom is better for students. And there are people who argue that yes, and AI can help supplement that because given the funding of school systems, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm getting off on a real tangent, but I guess what I'm just trying to say is AI can be good, but when I am trying to learn, I generally try to avoid it. But there are times when Googling does not work, and being able to ask a system and then use that to formulate better Google searches to find sources is good, hence Perplexity and Brave Search. Coming back from my tangent here, I have a video essay here called What Makes Good AI by Game Maker's Toolkit. For those of you who don't know, Game Maker's Toolkit is an absolutely incredible channel of video essays on game development and game design. He was, at least as of a couple of months ago when I last looked into this, he was doing a series on creating his own game and what that process looked like and what it entailed, as both like an educational thing and also like he's been talking about game design for so long, but he hasn't released a game. So okay, I have that pulled up. Let me look at chat really quickly. Shem, I don't like AI generally speaking, especially in the classroom. I've seen classmates copy paste from ChatGPT and keep the mark down. Duh. I don't remember what OTOH means. On the other hand, I use Copilot Chat / voice for my mobility issues, speech to code. Yep. That is, again, it's like very, very complicated because there are good arguments to be made that accessibility of the internet can be improved by these sort of tools. And I'm excited for that. Both from like a people who are like disabled perspective. And also I remember a story from like, I don't know, it was probably like 5 to 10 years ago at this point, of a developer at Microsoft who was writing in Scala as their main language, and they developed like a crippling RSI, repetitive strain injury, and they could no longer type. So they literally like created and like hacked together existing speech text options so that they could write Scala code. And that is like, I don't know, repetitive strain injuries are not uncommon, and it is like a disabling thing that people who are like not otherwise disabled become disabled through doing their work. And there's a whole conversation there. So I don't want to write off the technology, but I agree with the hesitancy because it can be useful and it can be harmful. I'll get to you, Adilis. Hey, first time chatter. Welcome. Warren Peach's obsession with NLP broke web search. Yep. That I feel like it is a tool that can be easily used by grifters and scammers. Like those people didn't have enough tools already. You can search on Amazon for like, I'm sorry, I can't complete the request or something like that. And you can see a whole bunch of like drop shipped products that all of their titles are like, creating this product name goes against the OpenAI terms of use, and it is just posted. And I don't know. At that point, like it is very revealing that exists, and that is the state of online spaces. If you're interested in that, I highly recommend reading Tony. Wait, nope, not Tony. Who wrote this? Cory Doctorow. Cory Doctorow's sorry for swearing. Not that I can't swear, but I generally avoid it. The Enshittification of the Internet. It is a wonderful article about how the internet is getting worse based on the different... Oh, it was specifically about TikTok, but it is a wonderful article about the ways in which the internet has gotten worse because of the conflicting incentive structures of creators and of platforms. It's really wonderful and very prescient, especially with AI. Feel free to call me Odie if it's more comfortable with you. Okay. Well, hello, Odie. Welcome. Hi there. It's my first hack week, and I'm just getting started with getting into coding, so I was wondering if you have a recommendation as to which language would be worthwhile to getting to know / learn. That is, one, an incredibly good question, and two, I'm probably not going to be able to answer this in the way that you would like. I remember when I was first getting into things, the answer that I was told was Python. Learn Python. Python is the best language for beginners, etc., etc. And that advice is not necessarily wrong. Python, its syntax reads very similarly to English. It has a whole bunch of different uses. It can be really interesting. And also, what I wanted to create was like fun little web toys, games, websites. And Python, as a language, it can do that, but it requires some like external tooling. So when you learn Python, so to speak, you don't necessarily learn what you're looking for. So my response to that is, what has gotten you into computer science? What brought you here? What are you interested in? And I can reply back with a good starting point for that, because starting with what you're interested in, what you're passionate about, what you want to make is always, in my opinion, a better starting point than what looks good on a resume or what is the most versatile or things like that. Because it is having that like passion, that interest, that'll both allow you to like maintain that interest over time and have a good time with it. And also it is that passion that'll help you get things like jobs. Because there are plenty of people, especially, I was about to say especially in the US, but I think this is a fairly global phenomenon. There are plenty of people getting computer science degrees. It is not that uncommon of a degree. And one of the things that can set you apart is either being a technical wizard or like having genuine passion and human connection. And I always advocate for passion, human connection, because I think that is just a thing that the world needs more of. And it's also the thing that I focused on. Reverlash, thanks for the follow. So that's a long answer, Odie, but if you feel comfortable replying back with what has brought you here, what you're interested in, and if you don't know, that's totally fine. I can list some like traditional answers as well. I see that Bonk was redeemed, but it doesn't seem like it went through. Again, we implemented this last month, so. Okay, I'm writing that down. So I need to fix Bonk. Make script. I saw you, Odie. One sec. Make script. Turn off dramatic tension. And then I need to add tangent alert. Because for those of you who've not been to one of my streams before, you might notice that I go off on tangents quite a bit. Odie, I greatly appreciate your honesty. Truth be told, the urge is to be able to make my own websites / improve others. Wonderful, amazing. I understand that wholeheartedly. That is a wonderful place to start. And I'm really excited for you. So I'm going to start at the beginning and then give you a couple steps from there. But really, anything that sounds interesting to you is a good place to start. The backbone of the internet, I know I'm going to be giving a fairly like basic starting point, but I just want to make sure I cover all the bases. The backbone of the internet, starting back from the very beginning, is HTML and CSS, which are two programming languages, that are ways that you format and style content on the web. So that is how you specify paragraphs, that's how you specify lists, that's how you specify like sidebars and buttons and things like that. HTML being hypertext markup language, which marks up the like content, the words that you want on the page, and like formats them, structures them, that sort of thing. And then CSS adds your colors, your fonts, your animations, that sort of thing. So that is like the lowest, like basic first step starting block, which can help you make things really quickly. It's very easy. I say very easy. There's a low overhead to creating a website with HTML and CSS. Plug for HTML5 specifically, please. Yes, HTML5 is the most recent release of HTML. And searching for that, I generally just refer to HTML5 as HTML because it is the most common, but there is XHTML and HTML4 and all of these different things that are just slightly more out of date and slightly harder to work with. So HTML5 and CSS, I think 3 is the most recent, are that like building block of like what shows on your screen, and I would say statically. A website that's not going to change. Think Wikipedia. Wikipedia is based on HTML, CSS. You open it up, you read text that's like formatted around on the page. There's some styling, there's some colors, there's some fonts, there's some pictures, HTML, CSS. If you want to make something that is more interactive, more, a lot of people would say interesting, that's where JavaScript comes in. JavaScript, a lot of people will make fun of it, that it was made in like a week by like drunk college students. Oh, HTML5 for semantic HTML, accessibility nerd chat. Thank you, Shem, for mentioning that. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, HTML5 has a whole bunch of tags specifically designed for, I believe, Shem, I'm going to be oversimplifying, so feel free to add more detail and or correct me in chat. But for things like screen readers and accessibility devices that help them parse it directly rather than needing to make inferences. So you can specify like different sections of the website doing different things. And I believe that is the meaning of semantic HTML. 100% great. Okay. So yeah, HTML5, and then JavaScript is what adds your functionality, your creativity, your spice on top. So something like where you're watching this right now, Twitch, all of the stuff that is like making this like video player work is traditionally going to be JavaScript. Because it allows you to, it was originally designed to be Java, but a scripting language to make lighter things. But the way that the history of the internet went, it basically is the replacement for Flash. So anything that is interactive, your more complex animations, calling to servers, calling to different like APIs and things like that, that happens with JavaScript. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, those three things give you the baseline building blocks of everything on the internet. And theoretically, from that, you could technically probably build almost anything. Now, I specify that with technically and probably because we've moved on past that. Those are still the building blocks, and it's still important to know them, but we have a lot of tools that make things easier. So you'll probably hear people talk about React, Angular, Vue, Svelte. Svelte is one that I used last month for one of my projects. These are frameworks that take HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and add onto them to enable you to do more things in different ways, faster and easier. So I would generally recommend learn the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Codecademy is what I learned and used way long ago. And then look into think about what you want to make. And do some quick Googling on like what people use for different projects, that sort of thing. Choose one, mess around with it, see what you like, and go from there. Those are generally the like 2 first steps of web development, creating websites generally. From there, you can expand out to a whole bunch of different things. It's pretty crazy where you go from there. But that's all like the basics. Web design, CSS, front end, JS or whatever scripting language to generate HTML, to back end, whatever you want. Yep. Free Code Camp is great and free. Codecademy charges now? Oh, I'm so sorry. I am used to when Codecademy was free. Free Code Camp is an iconic, definitely a good place. Oh, wait, there was another. Aha. Okay. I'm saying this with a big asterisk that I have not done this, but I've seen people who have gone through it, and I generally think that it can be a high quality way of going about things. The Odin project, I'm going to drop a link in chat, is an open source, like educational project that is mostly designed to be a like alternative to boot camps. So it has kind of a focus on like getting you hired. So it's your career in web development. But I argue that learning like development as something that you just like want to learn is very useful and fine. And what it allows you to do is it gives you foundations where it gives you prereqs of like different things that you use, Git, which is how you like save and work between different people writing the same code. It talks about HTML, it talks about CSS, it talks about JavaScript, and then it gives you the option between full stack Ruby on Rails, which my opinion is Ruby on Rails is a slightly older thing, and JavaScript is the more common. And then you get intermediate JavaScript, Advanced, and then it teaches you React and Node.js, which are then tools on top of that. So if you want one place to go, this is where I would recommend, because it generally has like a good community, it has a good open source community, and it has projects that it'll have you do. Oh, it's directing me to the Discord. But yeah, the Discord currently is 20,000 people online and 90,000 people total. So Free Code Camp is good, but my impression of Free Code Camp is a lot of different lectures. This is a little bit more holistic, well-rounded. Again, if that's overwhelming, that's totally valid. And going slowly is very valid, and just messing around with things is very valid. I think joining a hackathon, I'm working at MLH, so I'm slightly biased here, is a wonderful... What did I just do? I just did something in my OBS and I don't know what. Okay. Joining a hackathon can be a wonderful way to get more programming experience, because you get to work with a team of people and learn technologies. That's where I originally learned Vue.js, was when I was on a team with people who wanted to use Vue.js, and I was like, sure, I'll learn that. And then the next month I learned React, and like that was a way of introducing to things as well. Again, that's a lot, and I want to make sure I don't overwhelm you. I'm sorry if I did, Odie, but notes taken. I've opened quite the can of worms, but it is all very exciting. Thank you for sharing all this information. As I continue my deep dive into tech and coding, trust that all this great advice will be put to good use. Best of luck on your journeys. Thanks for coming to this stream, and keep coming back. These streams are wonderful. The MLH community is generally amazing. If you aren't in the MLH Discord already, feel free to join that, discord.mlh.io. That's also a wonderful place. Okay, I missed a bunch of chats while going on this. Hello, Adisuyash. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your username wrong. I want to bring coding culture to my college and even city. Great suggestions. You're very welcome. I am like glad that I'm able to talk to people about this, because I remember getting a little bit lost along the way. Thankfully, I had some good people in my local community who helped, but it can be really overwhelming. And there are a lot of people, I will say, there are a lot of people who will talk to you about like AI, ML, crypto, that sort of thing, because those are big buzzwords right now. But I think like starting with the basics is my like favorite place to start, because then you can move on to any of the other things. Where I've seen people who've really specialized into crypto during the crypto boom, and then those like skills aren't like, you might not be looking to get a job, which is entirely valid. But if you are, those skills aren't really in demand in the same way, and there's like a lot there. So sticking to like web dev basics, I think is a wonderful place to start. Can I have your Twitter? I technically have a Twitter at Nathan Dimmer, but I don't really use it. I don't really use any social media. You'll see me on these streams, and that is about my only presence on the internet. I'm thrilled to be joining MLH, especially early on in my journey. I'm so happy for you as well. I started in the MLH community when I was early on in my journey, and hackathons changed everything, because I made projects with people that I've become friends with. I made great relationships, learned so much, and I got the feeling. So one of the things that I talked about learning on Codecademy, I know this is a huge tangent. We'll get back to things. When I learned on Codecademy, it was wonderful because it walked me through all the syntax, but it didn't walk me through how to actually make anything. And I didn't know how to like run code on my own computer, or how to host a website or anything like that. So I like felt stuck after that of like, where do I go next? And hackathons, you're making something real that is like using the real technologies, working with other people. And I always think that that's a wonderful thing. And I especially want to encourage hackathons in person if you can find them, because those are always wonderful. Sorry to ask so many silly questions. Do not apologize at all for asking silly questions. I am here to answer all of the questions. Can I join MLH communities? Yes, I will talk more about that in a sec. We will get to all of this and how you can join hackathons and all that. I really quickly, again, a lot of different new people in chat, which is wonderful. I'm so glad y'all are here. I want to talk about my methodology for streaming, because I like go about it slightly differently than some people do. I will freely admit that I am not the best programmer. I am not like super competent. I joke a lot about writing janky code. But the projects that I've made have like I always like talking about the projects that are on the stream itself. So the TTS bot, the channel points, that sort of thing, because it is an example of what I've talked about so many times at this point, of small personal projects. If there was something that I interact with y'all like for probably around 15 to 20 hours every month. And I wanted to make that better and more interactive and more fun. And I realized, oh, I know how to code. Let me code some things to make that part of my life better. And now I use them every month, and I can look on what I made and go, that's cool. I did that. And I think that's incredibly valuable. I think there's great value in creating a lot of people make like social media clones. Like this is an Instagram clone. And there's a lot of value in that, in learning the ways that people do things in the industry. And also, I think there's just like a lot of value in making small janky projects and writing weird code. And I will always show you me making many mistakes, and I'm almost always doing something new on stream. I'm rarely ever doing something that I've done before or that I know very well. So you'll see me making like tons of mistakes and Googling things and following tutorials and doing my like real process of how I actually make things and what I would do at a hackathon. Because I think that it's really important. There's so many resources out there that are good tutorials by people who are brilliant coders, but I know, at least personally, that I felt like that was who I had to be, rather than like that I am good enough at any skill level, because I am like, I have unique interests and passions, and I can create things that no one else can, because like no one else wants like a button to turn on and off their channel point rewards within OBS, because no one else is doing exactly what I'm doing. That is a general spiel. So yeah, I'm not the best programmer, but I hope to create, like in these streams, a welcoming space where you can ask the silly questions, where you can ask the questions that you're probably embarrassed about. I know, at least I was and still am to a certain extent. And I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you for the follow, Kuda. Also an authentic person who is willing and able to engage in genuine conversation. Thank you, Shem. I feel a little bit too self-conscious to refer to myself in that way, but that is what I aspire to be. Of like, I will tell you like all of the things that like I have gone through and done in my computer science journey, the good and the bad, the things that I've disliked, the things that I have liked, because I feel like there's a lot of like a lot of masking. And it's part of the reason why I'm not on places like Twitter, where a lot of people post on those platforms like in a pre-professional sense, where they're like posting specifically thank you, where they're posting specifically for when people Google them, for when jobs are looking at them. And I don't want that to have to be like my presence. I'm not going to direct jobs to my streams when I'm applying to computer science jobs, because I'm not like writing beautiful code. Like my goal is not to be showing myself as this perfect person, but rather to show you like I am a normal person, and I have been welcomed and had a wonderful time in the hackathon community and in the computer science community, and I think you can too. I'm going to get off my soapbox a little bit. Programming should just mean organizing life digitally. This should be an activity for everyone. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it necessarily needs to be for everyone. There was a push when I was a kid of like, everyone should learn to code. And I don't think you have to, but I do think that it is generally like a good, like, just like learning how to like work on a car is not something that everyone has to learn, but knowing the basics can help you a lot. I think knowing the basics of coding can help you a lot when you encounter things in the real world, because we are going to need to be interacting with software and hardware for a long time. Such positive energy. I love this chat. I love these streams. It's wonderful. So to answer the questions of how can I join the MLH community, let's go to mlh.io. This is the like big everything that you need to do MLH in one place. mlh.io. It's our main website. And if you click the big attend a hackathon button, here are all of the MLH sponsored events. There are hackathons that are not MLH associated, but MLH is generally the biggest organization that helps individual hackathons. So these are, for those of you who've not been to a hackathon or know what a hackathon is at 24 to maybe 48, sometimes 72, sometimes a month, but generally 24 to 48 hour programming competition, traditionally held at universities by other university students. And MLH's goal and kind of role is by taking people who have been hackathon organizers for a long time and giving them a job to help run these events. So we see Global Hack Week, AIML, hello, welcome. And then we also see like Hacklytics is a hackathon that is happening in Atlanta. I will butcher this place, so I'm not even going to attempt to say it. I apologize if you live in this place. But we have Hack this fall. We have SBU hacks. We had just recently a hack in Michigan. I believe Spartan Hacks? Maybe M Hacks. I live in Michigan. One of my like local hackathons happened recently. And you can find hackathons that are near you. And a lot of this is US oriented, I will be honest. But there are in Canada, there are, oh, here we go. Here's Grizz Hacks. Grizz Hacks is my first hackathon. I will always love Grizz Hacks. Thank you, Grizz Hacks. You're wonderful. You'll notice that a lot of these, are US. But there are, I know, hackathons that happen in India. There's like a wonderful scene there. I'm not necessarily the person to be able to tell you the most about that because, again, I am someone who lives in the US. But there are plenty of coaches who live in India who would be able to tell you more about that on other streams and in the Discord. So this is how to find upcoming MLH events. And you'll notice that some of them are, we can see digital only, in-person only. Some of them are hybrid, theoretically, or at least some of them used to be. Okay, it looks like we've gone back to in-person, which actually I kind of agree with. But you'll notice that we have different MLH digital-only hackathons and global hack weeks that you can do from wherever. Really quickly, if you want more than this, discord.mlh.io. This one I'm going to drop in the chat. Oh my goodness, it automatically opened to... Let me drop this in chat. Is the invite to our Discord, which is a wonderful place where there are both virtual hackathons and you can interact with like the larger community, ask questions, all that jazz. Highly recommend you join the Discord. Those are like the main two things with MLH. Oh, and then for those of you who don't know, Global Hack Week .mlh.io. I didn't know the link for sure. Number one, you can click that in order to see we're currently in AI ML week. Then we have games week. Then we have APIs. And if we click learn more, we can look at the schedule. And hey, oh look, AI in computer science versus AI in game dev at 5 o'clock p.m. This is the schedule of everything coming up. And not all of them list the coach, but a lot of MLH coaches and streamers are like from and living in India. So going to streams that seem interesting to you, meeting other coaches, they would be able to better answer your questions about the hackathon scene there. And wherever you're from. There are a bunch of European coaches. MLH is a global community, a truly global community. Can I become a coach? Yes, and coaches generally are from people who have experience organizing hackathons and or have like a lot of experience at hackathons. So generally, I would not recommend anyone who is just getting into this to apply to be a coach, because being a coach means that you are not participating in the hackathons, you are not coding, you are not creating projects, but rather you are helping other people do that. And I think doing hackathons is an incredibly valuable thing. So I only became comfortable wanting to become a coach after I did like 30 hackathons, which is more than most people do. Admittedly, that is a lot. But most coaches have done a good number of hackathons and then feel comfortable like, okay, I have hackathons. I've learned a lot at hackathons, and now I want to help them be organized and run and help other people. Shem mentioned the Global Hack Week challenges are a good way to learn. I do not know much about challenges, so I'm not the best person to ask or answer about this, but I do know that they exist, and that you can... This is where I'm like slightly out of date in my knowledge of how this works. I knew And I still believe that doing challenges guilds are still a big part of. So when Global Hack Week was new, I was really involved in guilds, which are teams and groups of people at Global Hack Week, who like work together to do challenges and to learn things and attend streams. And that is like a way to find smaller communities within MLH. And doing challenges would get you points for your guild. Same with checking into streams. Now I also believe that they are how you get swag, right? Attend 5 sessions. They just re-implemented guilds, but not very active. Yeah, I know that there have been things changing. I am not the best person to answer that, but challenges, yes, are a way to learn a whole bunch of things that are based on, yeah, there are like a ton of different cool, implement a data structure, use speech to text or text to speech, that are just like a bunch of wonderful, yeah, to earn these points. I don't remember what points are used for. I apologize, but it's a good way of like getting a list of like interesting things you can try that are about the theme. And you get something for it. I don't remember what it is. I apologize. I should probably know that. Shem, get swag by completing certain challenges and then checking in and attending at least 5 streams. Points equals bragging rights, sort of. Okay. Thank you, Shem. I appreciate that. Points are for swags. I know that there is something there. I mostly just focus on my own streams at this point. But there is every day at noon Eastern time. Let me double check that. There's today in Global Hack Week, which if we go to day 2, yep, at noon Eastern time today in Global Hack Week, that is where they will go through all of the streams that are upcoming, and it is a chance for you to ask questions there are going to be probably 2 streamers on each one asking and answering questions from people in chat. So if you have any questions about Global Hack Week, go to one of these if you can. Any eligibility to become a coach? This is, again, I became a coach 2.5 years ago. So I'm not the most up to date about this. Was it that long? It was April of 2021. Goodness. Golly. So, becoming a coach. This is the page about all of the things with the application to be a coach if you want to be. I'm going to drop this in chat. Again, I don't necessarily know what this process looks like right now. I don't even know if we're currently hiring right now, but this is a description of what coaches are. The thing that I do know more about is the MLH Fellowship, and I'm also going to drop this in chat. This is probably one of the most popular programs that MLH does, where MLH has partnered with a whole bunch of different organizations to help match people with organizations that have open source projects, and you get paid a stipend to, yeah, a fully remote 12-week internship alternative. Oh, that was a little loud. Green Yoshi, I got you, lol, and then lol, I'm so sorry. You do not need to apologize. I, as the streamer, have complete control over what happens in the stream. And if this does not work for me, I can always turn it off. Anything that is enabled in the stream, I want you to know that it is a thing that I'm giving you permission to do. That really caught me off guard, and it has been a while since I've been metal piped. So, woo! But yeah, that is generally fine. We broke Dimmer. Where'd Dimmer go? I just needed to just slowly rest my head on the table for a little bit. But yeah, the fellowship is generally a very popular program. It is, I'm like 99. Yeah, okay. It is fully remote. There are different sessions that happen basically the entire year. It's a very wonderful community. So yeah, if you do not have much hackathon experience, I would recommend more looking at the fellowship if you are looking to get paid to be more engaged in computer science through MLH. Can a beginner in tech with basic skill set of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, Tailwind, and Bootstrap apply for MLH fellowship? So if we look at the application page, it's not what I'm looking for. So we'll learn more. It's a really wonderful program, but what I'm really looking for is program eligibility. So you need to be over 18, can communicate proficiently in English, both written and spoken. You reside in a country not embargoed by the US. You have access to video call quality internet connection for remote collaboration. You are committed to at least 20 hours per week for this program for the full 12 weeks. You are willing to be online during normal business hours in ET, PT, GMT, or IST. And then here is the thing. You know how to code proficiently in at least one programming language, where I'm looking for programs. Okay, I don't know the fellowship website very well, but you can go through this more yourself. You will need to submit an example project. Oh, this is Shem beat me to it. Where you submit an example project as part of your application, that needs to be like a fairly well-written, fully featured application. And people who generally just have basic HTML, CSS, like Bootstrap sort of websites, generally don't meet the level that MLH is looking for. But what I will say is there's never a penalty to applying. If you give it your all and you truly, like, if you spam applications, that can be a bad thing. But if you give it your all, I say go for it. And also, there's an entire Discord channel regarding the MLH Fellowship in the MLH Discord server. Yes, there are people who are more actively involved with the fellowship that can answer more of your questions. But generally, this is a program that is designed to be inclusive. So if you meet the skills, you can be accepted. And if you don't meet the skills, you'll generally be told, like, hey, we are not moving on to whatever step because of whatever reason. Also, maybe look into the GitHub Campus Expert Program. Thank you, Shem, for dropping all of these resources. Tell me a certain skill set which I can complete or hone in on, then apply for the fellowship. So this is where I go back to the other thing. Learning a specific language or skill set is not my opinion only. I'm not speaking for the MLH Fellowship Program. I am not speaking for MLH in any way. This is my opinion as an individual. Learning a specific skill set, while it can be useful, is not the best way to look for things like this. Where, in my opinion, the better thing for you to do is to have an interesting idea for a project that you're actually passionate about, and then learn what you need to do to complete that project. So, we're gonna go back in time to when I was an active participant in hackathons, and we're gonna look at Smart Faucet, which is a program or a project that I did. I'm gonna mute this, and we're just gonna look. This was a hackathon project that was over a weekend, but I basically jury-rigged together with an ultrasonic sensor and a Raspberry Pi a smart faucet. And this was my first time ever doing a hardware hack. So I learned a lot about how you control servos and how you control LEDs using a Raspberry Pi, and how you then take that code and send it to a server so that you can see like how much water you're using and all of this stuff. You can see the tech stack, which was slightly more complicated than it needed to be in hindsight, but c'est la vie. This is an example of like, this is a fairly small project. No one looks at this and goes like, wow, that's changing the world. And also, I learned so much from this project because it was something that I was like, ooh, I have this Raspberry Pi, I have this servo. This would be fun to make. And because it was fun, it was something that I learned a lot from. And this is what I would argue is important to focus on and think about. Of what are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Because it is that interest and passion that'll drive you to become a better developer. Because a program like the Fellowship is not going to specifically ask you like algorithms and data structures questions as its main way of like figuring out if you're a good developer. They're going to, and this is again my understanding, take it with a grain of salt, ask you about the project that you submit and what you've made and why you made the choices that you did. And that is their way of seeing if you fit the program. So it's not honing a specific skill set, it is making projects that push you in interesting ways, that you learned something from, that you are proud of. That's my advice, but also go into the Discord. You can ask questions in the MLH Fellowship channel, where you will get responses from people who are much more engaged in the Fellowship than I am. Now, with that being said, we have two things. One, let me scroll back through chat to make sure I didn't miss anything. Metal pipe as a verb is wild. Yes, it has been a consistent element of the stream for the past like year and a half though. So at this point, we also used to have realistic knocking, and I used to get to a point where metal pipes would no longer impact me. But it is because they haven't been around for a while and because the volume is different this time. That totally got me. You weren't expecting it because 404 wasn't here. Yes, 404 loves metal pipes. GitHub Campus Expert Program. I do not know what the GitHub Campus Expert Program is, but Shem already beat me to a link as I was talking about it. So, we're going to do two things. One, I usually like to, in the middle of my streams, take a bio break. I generally aim for around 5 minutes to give people a chance to stand up, use the bathroom, get water, eat some food, all of these different things. I'm channeling 404. I mean, the two of you are like wonderful in chat, both as like, I love interacting with y'all, and also like constantly beating me to links as I am talking about things. It's very fun. Thank you. Oh, but I generally try giving people a break in the middle of these to take care of themselves, because I know a lot of people will go from stream to stream to stream. So we're running a little bit behind, so I'm just going to give us like 2 minutes, but I'm going to put a 2-minute timer up on screen. And then we are going to be back, get some water, stand up, stretch, and then we will be looking at the video essay on what makes good AI in video games. It's around 16 minutes, so that should give us enough time to both watch that and for me to stop and talk about it and answer questions. And then that is how we are going to be ending today. So 2 minutes, we will be right back. That's not 2 minutes. Excuse me. There we go. Nope. I'm sorry. Did I do something to displease you, timer? Okay, I guess... Oh. 2 minutes. Save. There we go. 2 minutes. Right? See you then. Hello, y'all. Welcome back. I have this link that I'm going to drop in chat, which is to look at the MLH page for mentors, which is kind of out of date. I don't necessarily know how active this side of MLH is, but I know that theoretically it is something that did exist at one point. And also, Adi, I hear you. I really want to become a part of this MLH community. How might I help others in the hackathons? I want to become a helper coach, the one who guides the community. So this is me talking because I have not seen you before in streams. Yeah. So if you've been in the MLH community for a while now, I think that's very admirable, and I can't fault you for wanting to do that, because I am a coach. I'm doing that role. And also I would say that if you've not been a part of the MLH community for a long time, it is entirely okay to just go to hackathons and to have fun and to go to streams and to make weird things and to make friends. And I know, at least personally, I don't know what your situation is. I don't know anything about you. We just started talking just now. But I know that I used to have this impulse, and I still do to a certain extent, that I cannot just be like one of the people. I need to be doing the organizing. I can't just be a member of the club. I need to be the president. And that mostly came from my fear of like not being enough and of trying to professionalize, of like, I will get better jobs and I will be able to survive if I am like able to do all these things, if I am doing all that. And if you want to do that, all the power to you. And also, it is entirely okay to become a member of the MLH community that does not involve necessarily being a coach or a mentor or anything like that. Shem, to my knowledge, you are not any official sort of mentor. You just, I don't know, you just showed up one day in my streams and you've been hanging out ever since and helping people where you can, but not necessarily in an official sense. And to my knowledge, you show up mostly to streams for yourself and help people along the way. And that is a thing that I really admire. And I like wish that I had that more in my life. So I agree with Shem. I suggest being as active as possible in the MLH Discord. Plenty of folks ask questions there too. I entirely agree with that. And also, like, I feel like there's this push for, like, especially when I was a student, that I needed to teach. And you don't need to, like, teach as a student. You don't need to lead as a new member of the community. You can just learn and you can just be yourself at first. Shem, yeah, that's a big part of being in the MLH community. Yep. I mean, yes, and I do want to give you kudos, Shem, because you definitely go above and beyond. The MLH community is generally incredibly helpful, and it is a part of being the community and helping others and answering questions and doing all of these things. And also, I want to make sure to shout you out. That might be going way too far, because again, I don't know your life, I don't know you, but I wish that someone had told me that when I first started doing things like this, that I could just exist and hang out, and that would be okay. Oh, now I'm blushing, thank you. Aha! Now you know how it feels to be given compliments, as you did to me at the beginning of the stream. This was all an elaborate revenge plot. I say that sarcastically. I truly appreciate you, Shem. I share my learnings on Twitter and also guide my colleagues. Good for you. All power to you. With that, I am going to pause our music, and we are going to come back from our long tangent, which I will always say, I will talk about going on tangents a lot, but also I think that they are an important thing and especially good thing for my streams, because I feel very comfortable going on tangents where most streams stick fairly closely to the script. So it's a thing that most people who go to more than one of my streams knows, and at this point I've just accepted it. With that, let's take a look at what makes good AI, and specifically this is by Game Maker's Toolkit, a wonderful video essayist about game design.
Hi, I'm Mark Brown, and this is Game Maker's Toolkit. Whenever people talk about good AI, they invariably come back to the same three examples. I'm talking about the replica soldiers in the original Fear, the various aliens in the Halo series, and the Marines in the first Half-Life game. And yes, these games do have some really clever behaviours, and Halo 2 and Fear actually pioneered some new AI technologies that are still being used in games today. But one other thing these games have in common is that they all feature particularly aggressive enemies who actively try to hunt down and kill the player, and also have a lot of health points so they can stick around for longer. And this is something that makes these enemies feel a lot smarter. But don't take my word for it, this is something that Bungie knew all the way back in the first Halo game. During development, it set up a playtest with 2 versions of the game, with the exact same enemy AI on both. But on one machine, the aliens didn't do much damage and died quickly, and on the other, they did more damage and had more hit points. The number of players who thought the enemies were very intelligent jumped from 8% to 43% when playing against more resilient enemies. But the thing is, aggressive enemies just don't work for every type of game. This is something that id Software found out during the development of Doom 2016.
So I'm going to be jumping in. I think this is Game Maker's Toolkit, incredible, watch more of their stuff. But I also just want to reemphasize that, again, this is talking about AI in game development. So it's what I was talking about earlier, of like the idea that you're trying to challenge your player, that you're trying to like reach out and touch them, to like fight them, to this is talking about shooter games, but I think this can generally be applied to all different types of games. If you have a puzzle game where the AI is challenging the player, I think Candy Crush is a game that is a little bit manipulative in its loot boxes and all that jazz, but it generally has very good puzzle design in the way that it always keeps you like on the edge between winning and losing.
It started with enemies that would chase you down, but this made players act defensively. We'd end up in these situations where you would instantly start backing up, said director Marty Stratton. Instead, the studio told the enemies to hold their ground a bit more and let the player be the one who's pushing forward. So, just like everything else in game design, AI must fit the game's intended experience. Which means while aggressive AI fits the xenomorph in Alien Isolation, it would be wildly out of place in Batman Arkham Asylum. No one gets the drop on Batman, after all. And this all means that there must be more to good AI than just enemies who can kill the player. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about in this video, with everything from good general practices to examples of truly ambitious and ingenious AI. Good AI lets the player cheat, just not in ways that the player will actually notice, like how you can put a bucket on a shopkeeper's head in Skyrim and rob them blind. So hopefully in more subtle ways, like how in the Uncharted games, when you pop out of cover, enemies will start with a 0% chance to hit Drake, giving you a chance to take a few shots.
So I just want to emphasize here, this goes in the face of what we think of as AI design in other fields of computer science, where we are literally saying we want this system that we've created to not be able to do its job of like, if you were to write it like a chess AI, it would always be hitting the player. But no, we want it to deliberately not hit the player. We want the player to deliberately be able to steal, because it isn't in that interaction where the player feels like they're actually like have a chance that it is a game where they have choices to do interesting things.
In the Far Cry games, only a few enemies will be allowed to shoot at you at once to improve your odds of winning the fight. And in the Arkham games, enemies are told not to turn around during the Predator sections so Batman can sneak up behind his prey. These are things that the player should never really notice, but you would definitely feel their absence if they weren't there. It's all about making the game feel more fair, even if most games are actually biased wildly in the player's favour. Good AI tells you what it's thinking. This is most often done through short vocal clips, known as barks, where patrolling guards say things like,
"Sounds like someone's over there,"
and
"Must be nothing."
But this can also be expressed through animation and body language, or with more gamey elements like vision cones, light and noise sensors, and those ghostly images that show you where the enemy last saw you. I will talk about how much of this stuff you want to surface to the player, and how much you want to keep a bit fuzzy when I talk about stealth games in a future video. A different way to achieve this is to give AI characters distinct personalities, like the coloured ghosts in Pac-Man, or the different leaders in Civilization's single-player modes who all have their own unique quirks. Developers have actually found that this stuff makes AI characters seem smarter to players, because if an AI has complex decision-making and perception skills, like being able to notice that a door along their patrol path has been opened, the player may never know that the guard is capable of such a thought if they don't open their mouth and say, "Did I leave that door open?" But this is also critical feedback that the player can use to understand what the AI is doing, or is about to do, and can plan accordingly. Which brings me onto this next one. Good AI is predictable, which sounds...
I again just want to restate that this goes in the face of how computer science views AI, where the goal of AI, while there are examples, like I talked about with the search engine that I was using, that I'm blanking on the name of, starts with a P, and in certain medical AI, where you try allowing the AI to tell the user how it got to where it's got and what it's thinking. If you are doing a reverse image search on Google, you don't want that reverse image search algorithm that is doing image recognition to tell you oh yeah, I saw this red thing in the corner and that kind of looked like a face and that kind of looked like a cat. So here's what I came up with. You just want it to work. Where in this case, the goal is not for it to work, but the goal is for it to provide a foil for the player, where AI in game design is entirely different from other AI, where it is not its complexity, but rather its deliberate and intentional choices that makes it a good AI.
Odd, but hear me out. In 2004, Halo tech lead Chris Butcher said, "The goal is not to create something that is unpredictable. What you want is an artificial intelligence that is consistent so that the player can do things and expect the AI will react in a certain way." This allows you to play a game with intentionality, which Far Cry 2 designer Clint Hocking defined as the ability for the player to devise his own meaningful goals through his understanding of the game dynamics. To break that down a bit, when you play a game, you start to build up an understanding of how different things work. Like, you shoot a red barrel, it explodes, and now, going forward, you know that every time you see a red barrel, you can shoot it to create an explosion and can use this to your advantage. But this applies to AI behavior too. If guards always return dropped guns to crates, and turning off a generator will always make an enemy come check it out, you can then use this information to create plans, diversions, and traps. Without predictable behavior, the player can't create satisfying plans. Halo Man Butcher gave the example of sneaking up behind a grunt and the grunt running away. It would be bad if they only ran away half of the time, because then the player can build a plan that will only work half of the time. Instead, Bungie went for predictable actions, but unpredictable consequences. The grunt will always run away, said Butcher, but you don't necessarily know where he'll run away to. So predictability certainly doesn't mean easy. Take a game like Spelunky, where every enemy acts in an almost completely scripted fashion, which would make them effortless to avoid or kill until the enemies start appearing in big groups, begin to navigate different environments, and start interacting with other characters. Now, it's Spelunky.
So that is a really good example, because I talked about a very simple state machine of our Goomba, about how this is a very simple AI, similar to these AIs that we were talking about in Spelunky, but that is not inherently a bad thing in game design. That the goal is not complexity, that the goal is not high intelligence, but rather an interesting combination of things to create a good challenge for the player.
Good AI can interact with the game's systems. This is like how an enemy in Breath of the Wild doesn't just walk up to Link and start wailing on him, but will run off and pick up dropped weapons, set their wooden clubs alight, kick away bombs, and even throw their fellow monsters at you. Oh, that's gotta hurt. Again, this has the added benefit of making an AI character seem smart. An enemy in BioShock who runs to a health dispenser midway through a fight looks like he is aware of his surroundings, is interested in self-preservation, and feels like he has similar abilities to the player. But it also means you can screw them over by putting a trap on the health dispenser. By exposing an AI to the game's systems, we can provide loads of interesting ways to deal with foes in a more roundabout fashion, like making an enemy fight for you in Prey, or tricking an enemy into attacking a cuckoo so this happens. By the way, I propose we call this chicken boning an enemy. Good AI reacts to the player. This can be as simple as guards becoming more frightened as you take out their buddies in the Batman games, or something as complex as Shadow of Mordor. In that game, special orc captains are randomly generated with names, abilities, and relationships, and will then remember their interactions with the hero. If you run away from a battle, for example, the orc might reference this next time they see you.
Hi! Not letting you run this time. Oh, he's gonna finish it.
This is a great...
So I'm pausing for two reasons. One, Shem asked a question. Two, this is a perfect example of you could, if you wanted to use traditional computer science AI, make these characters use natural language processing and an LLM to be able to generate things on the fly. But this is a system that predates that. Well, not necessarily natural language processing, but definitely predates the widespread use and power of LLMs, where this is scripted. This is a deliberate interaction that is created by the developer in a predictable way that creates those interesting relationships, where it doesn't need to be some like beautiful, complex, elegant black box. It can be like small steps that interconnect to create interesting systems. So it's effective because it's variable interval reinforcement, predictable reinforcement for the player based on the AI's programming in the game. I don't necessarily know the psychology terms there, if it is accurate in those senses. But yes, the idea that it is like the player knows how the enemy is going to react in certain situations, so you can make plans based on that, but you also don't know everything that they're going to do as well. So it gives that idea of intelligence in that you can like learn someone, you can learn about someone, you can get to know someone, but you will never truly like know exactly what they're going to do at any time. And it is that like dichotomy between those two feelings of like, I see that they can do this thing that they are telegraphing to me, and also then that they do things that occasionally surprise me, or I can't entirely predict the outcome. These games are so hard to make, right? The games that they are showing here are mostly, if not all, made by large studios. Spelunky is, I think, the only indie game that has been referenced so far that had a smaller studio. Generally, I would say yes. Games are incredibly hard to make. And also, oh no, I'm thinking of a game that's incredibly popular right now, and I can't remember the name because that's not the way that my memory works. Lethal Company. Lethal Company is a game that you've probably heard of. It's incredibly viral, and it looks like this, and it was made by a team of one developer. One person made this entire game. And it is, I think, the 5th largest game on Steam in like 2 months. So you can create incredibly cool games that are incredibly popular as one person. What was this made in? It was made in Unity. So yeah, this is why I talked before about Unity, Unreal Engine, and Godot, as these tools implement things like for pathfinding. We are not going to be implementing our own A-star algorithm. We are going to be using that. Unity and Unreal make it easier to code these games, but it still takes a whole lot of skill. This was not this person's first game. And it takes a lot of like multidisciplinary skill of art design and music and sound and 3D modeling and animation and code and all of this coming together. So I would generally say, yes, games are very hard to make, because I say that because a lot of people who play games that are made by massive teams over many years. And I think it's important to remember that you can create small games that are still interesting and still fun. And I love playing games that are made in game jams because they are made by like a small team of people over like 36 to 48 hours. They're hackathons for game development that are still like incredibly fun and meaningful. And if I can find a game, I'm going to recommend it right now. One Day Better is a game that really resonated with me, and it is made by, I believe, a solo developer, and you can play this game on itch.io. It was made in 48 hours for GMT Game Jam 2021, so it's the game jam that this person made, and it is a game where you are, when it loads, I was alone and afraid and sad, and everything was cold and dark, but you came and made it better. Now it's my turn. You are the cat, and it is your job to help your human have a better day. And you have very few controls. We can see that we have up, headbutt, paw, and meow. So if let me try headbutting the player. We can see that they're quite depressed, but we, as the cat, can help them. And this was made by, I believe, just one person for this game jam in 48 hours. No, sorry, a team of 4 people. And it is a game that is stuck with me, and I highly recommend it. It's like 10 minutes. It's a very good game. So yes, making games is hard, and also you can create cool stuff. What is my name? My name is Dimmer, or I go by Dimmer. Dimmer is my last name. I use they, them pronouns. Yeah, that's me. Hello. I have 2 other streams this month, so you'll see me again, and then you'll definitely see me a bunch in March for Game Dev Week, which I'm excited for obvious reasons. Shrey, here's another game developed by a solo dev. Yep, itch.io has tons of wonderful, wonderful games that are made by smaller groups of people. And I think looking at those can be really helpful when you are looking to get interested in game dev, because seeing games that were made by small groups of people that you can only play for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, but still are meaningful and still are like impactful games, I think that's really powerful. With that, I'm going to go back to our video essay to make sure that we can complete it on time.
Way to create memorable and very personal stories for the player.
Your death will bring me even more glory.
Tracking the player can also be used to adapt the way the AI works. This doesn't need to be as clever as the shadow fighters in the new Killer Instinct, or the driver task system in the Forza games, where Microsoft tracks the way you play and can create AI doppelgangers to race or fight for you.
Now, I would argue that that is a good example of like traditional computer science AI that is used in game development, of like being able to look at a series of data, in this case, the way that the player plays, and then replicate that. That's like pretty traditional AI stuff. And that is used to great effect, but it doesn't have to be that complicated.
Really, it can be as simple as something like in Metal Gear Solid 5, where enemies track things like how often you perform headshots, take out bases without being seen, or infiltrate during the dark, and then change to different behaviour like wearing helmets, laying traps, or using night vision goggles. These are all things that the AI has been told how to do. It's not actually learning, but it just won't do them until the player hits a certain threshold, and the intended effect is stopping the player from using the same boring strategy for every base in Afghanistan. A similar system.
Just want to re-emphasize that it is not a machine learning system. It is intentional triggers that the game developer has created to push the player in new ways, so that they are constantly experimenting with the systems in the game.
System is used in Alien Isolation, where the alien unlocks new abilities as the game goes on to make it look like the xenomorph is learning from the player and to keep the game interesting as the hours tick by. Adapting the AI to the player is also used to build a good mood or drive the game's pacing. The most famous implementation of this is certainly the AI director in Left 4 Dead. This clever system tracks the well-being of each player based on their health and run-ins with the special infected, and if the team is cruising along, the intensity of the zombie horde is increased before the AI director eases off to give the team a chance to relax.
Going to again emphasize this. This is a system in which the AI is running the entire game to give peaks and valleys to the intensity that changes based on how the players are doing. So you don't select like an easy, medium, hard, but rather reacts dynamically to how you're doing and gives you periods where you're on the edge of your seat. Oh, will I be able to do it? And then goes back to a period where you can relax for a little bit.
But this tech isn't as new as you might think, and something similar was actually used in Pac-Man, designer Tora Iwatani said, "I felt like it would be too stressful for Pac-Man to be continually surrounded and hunted down, so I created the monsters' invasions to come in waves." So, in the game, ghosts swap between chasing the player and just wandering off into the four corners of the maze. Good AI has its own goals. Beyond kill the player, I mean. This game is Rain World, by the way, where other animals in the game are hunting for food and will end up in territorial scraps with rivals. Sometimes it's best to just let them get on with it. That's also how Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl works, or is supposed to work. Bandits make plans and then wander about the wasteland alone or in groups to enact those plans, meaning you could come across a raging battle that only occurred because two rival factions happened to accidentally run into one another. The AI is a bit buggy though, and you will need to install mods if you want the AI to be doing stuff outside of your immediate location. But Stalker's A-Life system sure was ambitious, and we certainly need more games like it. Or maybe more games like Waking Mars, a captivating sci-fi indie game about increasing biodiversity in the belly of the Red Planet. When you figure out how different plants and animals react to one another, you can forge self-sufficient ecosystems where AI critters can live and breed, even while you're exploring a completely different part of Mars. Finally, good AI.
I also just want to emphasize there that that is not a system that is like how things chase and kill you, but rather a system that implements a puzzle. So when we're talking about good AI, it's very easy to talk about the systems where the player is in an adversarial relationship with the game, but it can also provide insight into the ways that the games work. Also, Shem, so going back to psychology for a minute, this is why these games become so addictive. Yeah, gaming can be like, so I like struggle with that because a lot of people talk about gaming being addictive as like a negative thing that people should write off gaming altogether. And I agree that being addicted to something sucks and should and can theoretically be avoided. And we should have better legislation and better like rights of consumers to protect against that. And also, I think that the what we're talking about here, while it can be addicting, to use that word, I think that that might be too strong of a word, because what we're talking about is engaging games that make you want to come back. Whereas when I think about addictive games, I think about games that the player is not having fun, but they feel the need to keep coming back, that uses techniques like a progress bar that will never completely finish. You'll always have a random number of points, so you always want to keep finishing it. Or where it has loot boxes, where you keep trying to want to, yes, okay, thank you, Shem. There are many very addictive and manipulative tactics for getting people to do things, but I didn't mean it that way. It's that dopamine hit, like getting likes on Facebook. Yes, that is a way that games are engaging in a way that other media does not necessarily fit, in that you are like directly interacting with it in a way that can be a lot of dopamine hits, and that can cause problems for people. Battle passes, yep, very manipulative strategies to get people to keep playing. Oh, there was some study back in the early 2000s about kids getting depressed if they didn't get a text or something on their devices. That both makes a lot of sense and also makes me quite sad, because I don't necessarily know what to do about that. But I do know how to talk about game dev in AI and game dev. So let's finish this up.
Isn't just about enemies, and we need better friendlies, because even in games with great combat encounters, the good guys can be as dumb as dirt.
Hello.
Now, some developers just cheat and make their AI companions invincible, like Elizabeth in BioShock Infinite, who can't get hurt during combat. Probably a wise decision given the tumultuous history of escort missions in games. But there are other uses for friendly characters than just defenseless girls who follow the male hero around. In The Last Guardian, you work with a giant beast called Trico who can take care of enemies. But Trico is nervous around stained glass windows that you can smash. This means the player and the AI must work together, something which can get a bit frustrating when Trico has been specifically told to ignore the player's instructions about half the time in an attempt to make it seem more like an animal. In Event Zero, developer Ocelot Society was inspired by internet chatbots to make a game where you can talk with an artificial intelligence and work with it to solve puzzles on a derelict spaceship. I've got much more on that game in an earlier video. And then
that game uses some basic natural language processing for you to interact with it. So again, these like higher level computer science like theories and techniques can be applied in game development, but you'll notice that this entire video, not all of and most of, I would argue, the things that he's talking about as good AI are just good game design and good intelligent decisions made by the programmer using fairly simple algorithms, data structures, and tools.
In Final Fantasy XV, one of your road trip buddies, Prompto, is capable of snapping Instagram shots during your adventure. At specific triggers or just when Prompto feels like it, he'll automatically take a picture and later present you with an album full of snaps to sift through.
Damn, this is a really good shot.
I made sure I got the regalia's good side.
This has basically no gameplay value, but is a lovely way of preserving your personal experience with the game, and adds tremendous amounts to Prompto's character. Now, none of this is to say that we don't want simply better AI. Stupid enemy decisions can pull us straight out of an experience, and players derive little satisfaction from beating an obviously unintelligent opponent. Okay, maybe it is quite satisfying. But developers should always be trying to make further advancements in AI tech and create more nuanced behaviours for enemies. But it's important to remember that AI isn't just a technical problem, it's also a design problem, and every game should approach the subject in a slightly different way. Sure, we do need more games that are about fighting a tactical squad of aggressive enemies, because something's clearly not quite right when most modern shooters are still lagging behind a campy 13-year-old game. But it's important not to lose sight of the real goal. In Uncharted 4, Naughty Dog experimented with complex AI behaviours before settling on enemies who were, according to designer Matthew Gallant, spread out in a layout, looking human and smart, and moving in ways that are mildly predictable so the player has some ability to sneak up behind them. Because a patrolling guard's goal isn't to find the player, it's to present interesting gameplay. Hey, thanks for watching. Game Maker's Toolkit is powered.
So I would also just like to point out, again, Game Maker's Toolkit, I'm going to drop this link in chat. I highly recommend, if you are interested in game development, you take a look at their channel, because there's so many different interesting things that they talk about in game design, and things that I definitely did not notice in the games that I was playing until he talked about them. And here's another video about AI in video games. Well, that was a very interesting video. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad. Again, I do not claim to be the most knowledgeable person, but I've seen a lot of different things that I hope to be able to share with y'all. So, what are some of the psychology behind why the games are addictive? That is an extremely complicated question that I do not have the ability to talk about, but you can look into I would recommend, if you are interested in this, looking into addictive game design and or dark patterns, I believe is what they're called. Yes, dark patterns is a user interface that has been carefully crafted to trick users into doing things. So those are some things to look into if you are more interested in that. Side note, a friend of mine is a state legislator and is working on a bill in other states too, to hold big tech companies like Facebook accountable regarding kids and content. That would be wonderful. Because, yeah, the free market and the attention economy, which is a very dystopian thing to say out loud, relies on making you dependent on these services and these systems, because the more time you spend with them, the more money that they make. I will admit that I have a very weird relationship with the platform YouTube, where I will spend so much of my day watching YouTube videos, either in the background or as my main activity. And probably more than I intend ever, and probably more than I would theoretically want to do, but it is just a part of my day now. And I need to find other things to replace it, because I can't just cut it out of my life, because it has become a part of it. So that's wonderful in instances like this, where I can share wonderful video essays with y'all, but it is an example of the ways that tech, and specifically AI systems, can learn human behavior in a way that is manipulative and bad. Game Maker engine is also really good for 2D games. Yep, there are tons and tons of game engines out there. I specifically talk a lot about Godot because it is so open source, and because it has a wonderful developer community behind it. With that, What would the device specifications be for game dev? Whatever you have access to. You can do game dev on basically anything. I'm not going to say that having a more powerful computer isn't going to make some things easier, but I will argue strongly that never let your access to a computer limit what you can make. Even if you just have a Chromebook, there are web-only game engines that can work in your browser and you can still create wonderful things. We are almost, if not completely out of time. So I'm going to look at what is coming up next. By the way, Godot is available on Android as well. It is, yes. What is coming up next? It is... What? How did I get lost in the schedule? What? Is this not... Schedule? Date? I'm on the January schedule. How did I get to the January schedule? Okay. Check out that link. It'll be... Oh, the TyPy stream. Yes, that is what is happening next. It has to do with data science. Stick around. It's going to be very cool. And I am streaming again tomorrow at what time? Let me check my Google Calendar. Oh, golly. Tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, where we're going to look at creating a game in Godot and implementing an A-star algorithm. Thank you all so much for coming. This was a wonderful stream, and stick around for the data science TyPy stream. Bye!